I found out about the debt in the worst way possible. A letter came in the mail from the bank, addressed to me, demanding immediate repayment of $350,000. I thought it had to be a mistake. I never borrowed that kind of money in my life. When I read further, my jaw dropped. My name was on a loan contract I had never signed. The guarantor, the borrower, everything had my details. My heart started racing. Then, one line stopped me cold. The original borrower listed was my younger brother. That's when it clicked. Someone had added me to his debt. And in my family, there were only two people who had access to my documents. My parents. I called them right away, my voice shaking with anger. "What the hell did you do? Why is my name on his loan?" There was silence on the phone. Then my father said calmly, "We couldn't let your brother drown. He needed help. You're stronger, more responsible. The bank trusts you." I almost dropped the phone. "You forged my name? On $350,000. My name is Ethan, and I am 34 years old. I never thought my own parents would sacrifice me to save my brother's reckless life. Now I was staring at a mountain of debt that wasn't mine, and I knew I had to take action they never saw coming. The next morning, I drove straight to my parents' house. I didn't even knock. I just walked in, waving the loan papers in my hand. My mother froze at the kitchen sink, and my father put down his newspaper like he had been expecting this. That I slammed the documents on the table. "Explain this. How could you put my name on a $350,000 debt I never agreed to?" My mother's voice trembled. "Ethan, your brother was desperate. He was going to lose everything. We couldn't just let him suffer." I clenched my fists. "So you decided to ruin me instead? Do you even understand what this means? My credit, my job, my future are gone." Then came a climax. My brother walked in, still half asleep, rubbing his eyes. When he saw me holding the papers, his face turned pale. But instead of apologizing, he shrugged and said, "You'll manage. You always do. I just needed a break." I snapped. "A break? This isn't pocket change. It's $350,000. Do you even know what that means?" My father raised his hand, as if to calm me down. "Ethan, listen. You're the responsible one. You'll figure it out. Your brother doesn't have the same strength you do." That was it. In that moment, I realized they didn't see me as their son. They saw me as a safety net, a solution, a tool that I stormed out of the house, my mind racing. If they thought I would just roll over and carry this weight, they were about to learn how wrong they were. The very next day, I walked into a lawyer's office with the loan papers clutched in my hand. My stomach twisted as I sat down across from him. He adjusted his glasses, skimmed through the documents, and then looked at me with raised eyebrows. "Ethan," he said slowly, "this signature, are you telling me this isn't yours?" I leaned forward. "I swear on my life, I never signed this. I never agreed to cover my brother's debt." He nodded and pulled the papers closer. "That's forgery, a serious crime. Whoever did this could face jail time if we prove it." Hearing those words sent a mix of relief and rage through me. Finally, someone understood. Finally, I wasn't crazy. The climax came when he flipped to the last page and pointed at the witness signature. My heart nearly stopped. It wasn't a stranger. It was my father's name, written neatly in ink. He hadn't just known about it. He had helped make it official. That I felt my whole body tense. So my parents didn't just know. They signed off on it. The lawyer leaned back. "You have two choices. You can stay quiet and pay for a debt that isn't yours. Or you can fight this, and that means exposing your own family in court." I walked out of that office with my fists clenched, my chest heavy. I knew what I had to do, but I also knew once I started this, there was no turning back. That evening, I drove back to my parents' house, the loan papers still in my hand, my lawyer's words echoing in my head. This time, I didn't come to argue. I came for the truth. That I dropped the documents on the table in front of them. My father looked up, calm as ever, while my mother wrung her hands nervously. That I pointed at the page. "Explain this. Your name is here, Dad. You signed as a witness. You helped forge my signature." For the first time, his face hardened. "Yes, I signed, but it was for family. Your brother was drowning. Ethan, what were we supposed to do? Let him lose everything?" My voice shook with anger. "Yes, because it was his debt, not mine. You didn't save him. You sacrificed me." The climax came when my mother suddenly snapped. Tears streamed down her face as she shouted, We thought you'd understand. You're the strong one. He's fragile. If he went bankrupt, he'd never recover. But you'll figure it out like you always do." I stood there stunned. To them, my life was less important than protecting my brother from the consequences of his own mistakes. I took a deep breath, looked my father in the eye, and said coldly, "You didn't just betray me. You broke the law, and now you'll face the consequences." My father slammed his fist on the table. "You wouldn't dare turn against your own family." I stepped back, gripping the papers. "Watch me." That night, I knew the line had been crossed. It wasn't just betrayal, it was war. The next morning, I walked into the bank with the forged loan contract under my arm. My heart was pounding, but I forced myself to stay calm. At the customer desk, I asked to speak with a manager. Within minutes, I was sitting across from a man in a gray suit, his face polite but guarded that I slid the papers toward him. "This loan has my name on it, but I never signed it. My signature was forged." He looked at me carefully, then examined the contract page by page. His expression grew tighter the further he read. Finally, he leaned back in his chair and said, "Mr. Ethan, this is very serious. Are you certain this isn't your signature?" I met his eyes without blinking. 100% certain. The climax came when he quietly admitted, "We've had concerns about this loan from the beginning. It was approved under unusual circumstances. If what you're saying is true, someone inside this process may have ignored clear warning signs." I pressed him. "So what does that mean for me? Am I free of this debt?" He shook his head. "Not yet. Until we investigate and prove fraud, your name is still attached. But if you can provide a handwriting expert statement or legal proof, we will freeze collection." It wasn't freedom, but it was a crack in the wall. I had bought myself time. As I left the bank, clutching the documents, one thought echoed in my mind. My parents hadn't just betrayed me. They had dragged me into a mess that could expose corruption bigger than I imagined. 2 days later, word got back to my family. I don't know if it was the bank that contacted them or if my brother had his own ways of finding out. But the storm came fast. I was at home when my phone rang. It was my mother, her voice sharp and trembling. "Ethan, what did you do?" "The bank is investigating now. Do you have any idea what this means for us?" I kept my tone cold. "Yes, Mom. It means the truth is finally coming out." Before she could answer, my father grabbed the phone. His voice was loud, furious. "You ungrateful boy. You're going to destroy this family. Do you really want your own parents dragged into court? Do you want your brother in jail?" The climax came when my brother himself showed up at my door that evening. He barged inside without knocking, his face red with anger. "Do you think this makes you a hero?" he shouted. "You're ruining everything. If you cared about family, you'd take the fall for me." I stepped closer, my jaw tight. $350,000 is not a fall, it's my life. And I won't let you bury me in it. He smirked, though his eyes betrayed panic. "You won't go through with it. You've always protected me. Deep down, you can't hurt your own blood." I opened the door and pointed outside. "Watch me. Get out." As the door slammed behind him, I realized something important. They weren't afraid for me. They were afraid for themselves. And that fear meant I was finally winning. The next step was clear. My lawyer told me, "If we want to tear this contract apart, we need undeniable proof. Get a handwriting expert." So I did. A week later, I sat across from a gray-haired man in a small office filled with books and magnifying tools. He adjusted his glasses, spread the loan papers across his desk, and asked me to write my signature 10 times on a blank sheet. I did, my hand steady despite the storm inside me, as he compared the samples under a magnifying lamp, moving slowly, tracing each curve with a pen. Then he looked up. "Mr. Ethan, this signature on the loan, it isn't yours. The strokes are wrong. The pressure is inconsistent, and the style matches someone trying to imitate your hand." Hearing that felt like air rushing back into my lungs. It was official. I had proof. The climax came when he added, "If you want, I'll testify in court. This is forgery, and no serious judge would mistake it." He signed his own report and stamped it with his seal that I walked out of that office, clutching the folder like it was gold. For the first time, the balance of power shifted. My parents and my brother had cornered me, thinking I would bend like always. But now I had a weapon stronger than their guilt trips or their manipulation. That night, I laid the expert's report on my table and whispered to myself, "This time, the truth will bury them." The courtroom smelled of polished wood and nerves. I sat at the plaintiff's table with my lawyer, the forged loan papers, and the handwriting expert's report neatly stacked in front of us. Across the room were my parents and my brother, their faces tight with worry. The judge looked serious as the session began. My lawyer spoke first. "Your Honor, this is a clear case of forgery. My client's name was illegally placed on a loan of $350,000. We have expert analysis proving the signature is false." The handwriting expert was called to the stand. Calm and professional, he explained every detail: the shaky strokes, the mismatched angles, the deliberate attempt to copy. He ended with, "There is no doubt in my professional opinion that this signature is forged." The climax came when the judge turned to my parents. "Do you deny your involvement in this?" My father stood, his voice steady but cold. "We did what we had to do. Our younger son was drowning in debt. Ethan could handle it. He always could." The entire courtroom gasped. They weren't even denying it. They were justifying it, and why mother began to cry, whispering, "We only wanted to save the family. We thought Ethan would understand." The judge's face hardened. Forgery is not a family matter. It's a crime. And if proven, there will be consequences. I looked at my parents across that courtroom, and for the first time I saw fear in their eyes. Not disappointment, not anger, pure fear. That day I knew the tide had turned. They could no longer hide behind the word family. Now they were defendants. The judge ordered a full financial investigation. Bank records, loan contracts, credit card statements, everything tied to my brother and, by extension, my parents. I knew it would reveal ugly truths. But even I wasn't prepared for what came next. At a week later, my lawyer slid a thick folder across his desk toward me. "Ethan, you need to see this." I opened it, my eyes scanning page after page. My brother wasn't just drowning in one debt. He was buried under several. Credit cards maxed out. Personal loans unpaid. Another business loan in default. In total, he owed not just $350,000, but closer to $500,000. My chest tightened. So all this time, they didn't just forge my name for one loan, they were hiding everything else too? The climax came when my lawyer pointed at a section highlighted in red. "Look here, your parents used their house as collateral for one of his loans. If this all collapses, they could lose everything." It hit me then. Their betrayal wasn't just about choosing him over me. They had tied their entire lives to his reckless choices. And when it all started to fall apart, they tried to sacrifice me to save themselves. The next hearing, the judge reviewed the findings. He stared at my parents and said, "This court is now aware of a pattern of financial misconduct and concealment. This is bigger than one forged signature." My brother sat there pale, sweating, his bravado gone. My mother covered her face with her hands. My father stared at the floor. For the first time, they looked smaller than me, like the walls of lies they built were finally crashing down. The final hearing felt like the end of a nightmare. The courtroom was silent as the judge shuffled the papers in front of him. My lawyer sat tall, while across the room my parents and brother looked like shadows of themselves. The judge spoke clearly. After reviewing the handwriting analysis, the financial investigation, and testimony from all parties, this court finds that Mr. Ethan Parker was fraudulently attached to a loan of $350,000. He is hereby released from any responsibility for this debt. Furthermore, charges of forgery and fraud will be forwarded for prosecution. My chest finally loosened. I had won. The debt was no longer mine. Justice had spoken. The climax came when the judge looked directly at my father and brother. Family does not place one member in ruin to cover the failures of another. What you did was not protection, it was exploitation. My brother muttered under his breath, but his voice cracked. My mother sobbed quietly, while my father's face stayed stiff, though I could see his jaw trembling. That I walked out of that courtroom free. Not just from the debt, but from the chains my family had wrapped around me for years. Those of you listening, I want to say this. Sometimes the hardest battles aren't with strangers, but with the people closest to you. Don't let guilt or manipulation trick you into carrying a burden that isn't yours. Thank you for listening to my story. If it meant something to you, I'd appreciate it if you subscribed and left a like. It helps more than you know. And remember, protecting yourself doesn't make you selfish. It makes you strong.